So the theme of the month is about belonging, and I wanted to do this exercise because it causes us to think about what we feel about our beloved community. When I meet a wedding couple, I often ask them to give me a word or a phrase or an image about the other person, what they mean to you, what your love means to you. And that's what I wanted us to do. Think about an image, a phrase, or something that brings to mind our beloved community. And in doing that, in thinking about that, we feel a sense of belonging increases, and we feel an ownership, if that's the right word, of our community. So from now on, it isn't Northwest Church, it's our oasis of congregants at Northwest Church. So hopefully, and at the end I'll read some of these, we'll have some really, really interesting ones, and keep thinking of them. So I'm talking about belonging today. There are many assets and facets to belonging. I wanted to focus on one that's usually somewhat obfuscated. We don't like to think about it because it's kind of hard, it's tough. Usually we're thinking about belonging, we're going to events, and we're having parties, and we're having worship, and we're being spiritually uplifted, and I go to church because I get this out of it, and I get that out of it. And those are all wonderful. That's all part of our community. But what I wanted to talk about is that you cannot be in community without Ubuntu. As our youth said, I would say you cannot be in community without also sacrifice. There are contentious relationships. One person wants this, one person wants that. There are times when we're taking up too much space. There are times when we need to take up more space. But whatever the contention is, we all, at one time or another, need to support the others and sacrifice of ourselves. That is just a part of belonging to community. And you have to think whether the sacrifice is worth it. Well, I asked in my description of the sermon, why do we live our values together and not alone? Why don't we just do it alone and not worry about all that sacrifice and contention? The answer is obvious. Because it amplifies the love when we are together. The social justice work we do is so much more powerful if we do it as a group. Because community is love. Humanity is about giving of yourself and being with others. So, the sacrifice to me is worth it. I wanted to talk specifically about sacrifice, giving an example from my life and an example from the church, so we can narrow it down. In my life, a few years ago, I moved from California, where we were living in Los Angeles. I left my job there. We'd been there for 12 years. I took my wife. I took my 2 daughters, or we took each other, our 2 cats and a dog in a very, very old car with a trailer and all of our belongings, and we drove across the country. Now, the timing happened to be right when I was laid off from a job, so that was good timing, but it was also as my mother-in-law was becoming sicker and sicker. My mother-in-law had been sick for quite a while. She was disabled for years. But she was becoming less ambulatory to the point of being bedridden. And she went into palliative care. She went into home hospice. So I said, we are going to move to Savannah to be with Mom. So like I said, we picked up. We had to take our kids out of school, the only community they had known. We had to drive across the country. I had to go to Savannah. We had to find a new job. We had to put them in new schools. There was a lot of sacrifice there. Not to mention that we gave away the cats, but we had this dog and with us. Now, in Los Angeles, there are not many fleas. In Savannah in the summer, there are many fleas. And coincidentally, this particular dog was allergic to fleas, which we did not know. Coincidentally, this dog was not really adored by anyone else in the household where we were staying except for us. We were staying in my mother's home where she was lying in bed. We were staying in a very, very small area that was not ours, with a family of 4 and people coming in and out and in and out and in and out, taking care of our dying mother. All of them hated this dog whose hair was dropping off in clumps and it was bringing fleas in the house. So needless to say, it was a bit of a struggle. And I honestly, at times, just didn't want to be there. Didn't think we should be there. I didn't. But I sat with my mother-in-law when the gaggle of family cleared out and it was just the 2 of us alone. And she wasn't communicative. Sometimes she was, sometimes she wasn't. I knew she could hear me, and I just held her hand, and I looked into her eyes, and I played some gospel music. She loved gospel music. She was a professional gospel singer. And I thought about the immense sacrifice that she had made her entire life to keep our family together, and it was immense, nothing compared to what I was experiencing. And I realized that's what you do for community you love, for family you love. You sacrifice when the other is in need. You lift them up when they're in need, and they'll lift you up when you're in need. Sorry. And then the other aspect of it was that people were coming and going, as I mentioned. And she had a church community because, you see, she was a very religious Southern Baptist. And that church community came in, and they sat with her, and they prayed with her, and they sang with her, and they brought us food, and they were very helpful. And we were very grateful that they were there. But at times they took up space when we needed that space. When the children, my mother's immediate children, needed to be with her, sometimes they stole those moments, not on purpose. We were very grateful for their presence. But it was a delicate balance of supporting us in a time of need, at a time when our mother was dying, and also knowing when to step back. I bring up these 2 examples, and I'm not, trying to teach you how to be in the world. I've been at Northwest Church for a while, and I know all of you know about sacrifice. I have seen it. I'm lifting it up because this is a month where we talk about belonging, and I just think we all should think about the aspect of sacrifice in belonging. And so there was contention. We sacrificed. We had to know when to move up. People had to know when to step back. And how this relates to our church is this. When I first came here, Reverend Kimmy asked me to meet with what's called the Sacred Care Circle. And if you don't know what that is, that was a committee that existed for a while. It hasn't existed in a little while, but they were meeting to restart it. And the Sacred Care Circle supports people at end of life. They're congregants that support other congregants at end of life. There are other programs like it. Beaumont Hospital does what's called NODA, No One Dies Alone, where we sit with people who are dying. So I went into this meeting with the Sacred Care Circle thinking, oh, this is going to be easy. Of course the congregation is supportive of this program. I mean, how could they not be supporting people at end of life? But when I got in the meeting, I realized that how a congregation works is there's sacrifice and there's contention, and not everyone was on board with this. I want to read you just a quick quote from Reverend Nancy Ladd about relationship in a congregation. You'll relate to this. She spoke at General Assembly in 2016, and she's my teacher, by the way, at Meadville. The wonderful, deep-spirited anti-racist organizer Mickey Scott V. Jones had said that relationship is the sandpaper that wears away our resistance to change. Relationship is the abrasion that agitates enough to make a way forward. Relationship consistent in ongoing encounter with people and perspectives different than our own, it smooths the way for the sacred even as it rubs us raw. And there is a holy abrasion of the spirit that is born in deep relational encounters across differences. So we need these contentious relationships. Because this sandpaper of relationship, what happens when you rub sandpaper on something? It becomes smooth. It smooths out our way working through these relationships. And the particular contention in the Sacred Care Circle was around the name, the word sacred. Sacred is a sacred word. Now, as you know, has a very diverse population of people, many different theologies, many different philosophies of life. Some people love to use sacred language. It is poetic. They can express themselves well, and that is wonderful. And some people have been hurt by sacred language. Some people feel that from misuse and overuse, it has been vacated of meaning, or that when I say a sacred word, I'm not going to communicate properly, and that's a scary thing. And that's valid too. So this was the contention around the word sacred. And I just want to read another quote from Meredith McGuire's book, Lived Religion, where she says, "Sacred encompasses all the ways individuals address their deepest concerns and attend their spiritual lives." That's a pretty broad definition I think everyone would be comfortable with. And I thought, okay, maybe if I explain it in a way like that, the people who don't like the word sacred will be okay. But then I thought, why should they have to give in? Why should the other side have to give in? I didn't know what to do. And then one of the committee members demonstrated for me the sacrifice that I'm talking about. And this committee member really, really liked the term Sacred Care Circle and turned to me and said, "Let's change the name. I'll give it up." Because I can say Sacred Care Circle all day long, but if the work isn't being done, who cares? The words should not get in the way of the work. They sacrificed so that we could grow our love in this community, to support others. So I have, that was one aspect. The other aspect of the contention was that people thought and felt, rightfully so, that when someone is dying, it is only the intimate family, the immediate family, that should be there, not other people. As has happened with my mother-in-law. They help, but sometimes they got in the way. And that's perfectly valid as well. So I thought about it, and I said, well, why don't we get input from people who feel that way too? Because you know what? If we need to be there when no one's there, it's great that we're there. But if someone is there in the immediate family and they communicate to us that we don't need to be there, we could step back and prepare a meal for them. We could step back and carpool them back and forth to the home of whoever's dying. There are other ways we can help where we are not stealing moments and taking up space. So what I would like to do, I'm going to give you another assignment. I know you're thinking, what is this school? We're writing down this assignment and that assignment. Is that right? Well, the other one you can do is homework. I would like you to try and come up with names for the Sacred Care Circle that's meaningful. You can email them me. You can email them to the church. You can, send them to me in any way you want. And I would invite you on Thursday this week from 11 to 1 to meet with the Sacred Care Circle Committee, if you can. If you can't, please email some suggestions. And this isn't a commitment. We're putting this out there as an opportunity, as a possibility. If this committee works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But why I would like to invite you there is to brainstorm. If you have an issue with the Sacred Care Circle, come and tell us what it is, and let's work on it and figure out how to make this happen. Should we meet once a week? Should we meet once a month? Should we meet quarterly? Should we just volunteer our time at Beaumont sitting with people who are dying? Should we have a list of people who are available to the congregation? How should it work? So I invite you from 11 to 1 on Thursday to come. So there are many assets and aspects and facets of belonging that we're going to talk about over the month. But I just wanted to lift up this idea of supporting each other, even if it means sacrificing, in order to engender love, in order to build community and keep it together. And I invite you to think about whether that sacrifice is worth it or not. And with that, I want to looked through some. I haven't looked at any of these names. Oh, before I do that, when I was searching up a compiled list of collective nouns, I found this article from the New Yorker, and I thought you would like it. It's called A Compiled List of Collective Nouns by Mia Mercado. A group of ants is called a colony. A group of aunts is called a book club. A group of sparrows is called a host. A group of men named James is called late-night hosts. A group of millennials who look different is called a marketing campaign. A group of millennials who look the same is called brunch. A group of millennials who have laptops is called a co-working space. A group of gorillas is called a troupe. A group of mostly white men is called an improv troupe. Hopefully that's changing. A group of buzzards is called awake, and a group of liberals calls itself woke. A group of geese is called a gaggle. A group of crows is called a murder. An informal gathering of members of the media by the White House press secretary used to be called a press gaggle. It is now called a press murder. And a group of murders is called a Game of Thrones finale. A group of donkeys is called a drove. A group of scenes featuring Ryan Gosling behind the wheel of a car is called drive. A group of whales is called a pod. A group of fish is called, ew, that's so gross. Why are there so many fish here? An angry group of pedestrians is called New York. An angry group of traffic is called Los Angeles. An angry group of states that you can't name is called the Midwest. He wrote it, I didn't. She wrote it, I didn't. All right, so we have some words. I'm just going to go through a few. A group of UU congregants, an oasis, UU congregants. A tribe. A jello. This one's appropriate, a flip-flop. You can look through some of these as well, but I'll just pick out a few. A chaos of UUs. A tapestry. A conundrum. Cacophony. Collective conscience. A congregation. Congregation of questioners. A rainbow. And unigathering. I like that. Wow. A menagerie. And here's one that we'll argue over, theists and non-theists, a creation. How about an evolution? A life expanding. A universe. A truth. And of course, this is the last one, a fruitcake. I think that's the one I'm going to stick with. So just, when you think of your congregation, just feel the love with these words and own it, because the sacrifice is worth it, I will tell you. Please rise in body or spirit for hymn number